Afternoon, everybody. It's Mr. Pickering back with this week's geography lesson. Yeah, I know the mop's getting a bit long on top, but there we go. Hope you're all doing well. Before we get going, just a couple of quick reminders about some basics. This will be in the PowerPoint, so you can pause it and read it again later. But just to remind you that all work obviously is set on Go for Schools. Specific work, such as work this week, is going to be uploaded and handed in through the assignment tab within Teams. Any other work you can insert into your class notebook through Teams, and there's videos of how to do these both on the next slide as well, so you can link to those. Previous files such as PowerPoints or anything you've missed are also available in Teams under the Files section. Just click through lesson by lesson. If you're ever stuck, you can send me a message on Teams, probably the quickest way to do it, or post it in the general channel. It's a bit easier than emails. Number 6, if you can, completely optional, you don't need to, but I'd recommend, if you can, using the app versions of Teams and OneNote rather than the web browser version. They just work a bit easier. They give you a few more options how to do stuff. You can do that on PC or on the phone, both available for free. And finally, if you still don't have Office, you get that for free as part of your school. So you can get that through your email. And again, the Microsoft Office app is always free. Anyway, on to geography. Here we go. So, unit on tourism, specifically European. There's the 2 video links I said about. They'll be in the PowerPoint. So, start today. We've got some European cities and the countries which they reside in. All I'd like you to do in a second is to pause the video and try and locate specifically which country. The borders are still there, but with no names or colours, etc. Which country is which in terms of where these cities would go on this map. These are going to come in again later, so you'll see why. Okay, so pause the video now and have a go. And we're back. Right, answer time. Now, bear in mind the answers on the next slide are not the clearest, so if you're absolutely not sure, you can always look at it up on an online map, Google Map or something like that, but that should be fine. So here we go, answers. Some of these, I'd like to think you got some of these down here in the southwest, or Western Europe as it were. As we move towards the east, it's probably a little bit more difficult, specifically Istanbul, Prague perhaps also. Anyway, on to today's. Okay, so instead of a title, we're actually going to have a hypothesis. So it's just a statement, and it says the places with the highest visitor numbers have most environmental damage. Now you might already be thinking, well, that's where these European cities that we've just done are going to come in, and if you did, that's absolutely right. So by the end of today, you need to be able to describe the patterns of visitors to Europe, explain the correlation between visitor numbers and pollution, and finally analyse if the most visited places have the most environmental damage. So this hypothesis is something we are either going to find to be true or incorrect, and we're going to try and prove it with some data. So first of all, before we do that, I want you to have a go at predicting what you think the evidence is going to show us before I provide it on the next slide. So all I need to do now, just a quick sentence, is can you try and answer that question? What do you think the evidence will show us in relation to that hypothesis? So for example, will the places with the most visitors have the most environmental damage or not? And if not, could you tell me why not? So pause the video now and have a go at that. Next. Okay, we have some data now. So we've got those cities that I mentioned at the start, and on the right I've added the visitor numbers per year in millions. Now this data is not completely up to date, so if you went around Googling it, you'd almost certainly find some differences, but this is the piece of data we're using specifically because it has a pollution figure, which we're going to come to later. Okay, so I've color-coded it here as well, just so you can see it's in descending order. So we've got the highest at the top and the lowest number at the bottom. Now on the next slide, there's what's known as proportional arrow map, whereby if I flick to it now, you can see that from a picture of each city, there is an arrow which is proportional in size to the number of visitors they get, and therefore the arrow points to the location. So for example, Istanbul over here on the right hand side has the largest arrow because it has the largest number of visitors per year, or visited tourists per year. And you can see there's a small key up here in the top corner. Now this is something we will be doing if we're in school, but as not, I thought it would just be best to show you what it is. It's not too complicated, so you can see obviously 3 categories in the number of millions of tourists per year, and the width just grows alongside the number of tourists, or shrinks alternatively. So 1 millimetre, you can see at the scale along the bottom, equals 1 million visitors. Anyway, what I'd like you to do now then is, using that map, and answer the following questions. So first of all, nice and easy, which places receive the most? So I'm looking for the top 3. And then finally, which places would you expect to suffer the most environmental damage, and why? Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? But most importantly, that second part, why? So pause the video now. And welcome back. Right, once you've done that, hopefully you got something that looks like this. So obviously the top 3 were Istanbul, London and Paris. And if you are like me, you probably have predicted that, yeah, those 3 are the places you predict to have the most pollution, because with more visitors, it leads to more traffic, such as car pollution, might be aeroplanes, all types of air pollution, more litter, and noise pollution. So that is probably what I would expect most people to predict, certainly what I would have done. Right, onto some data then. Is that going to be correct or not? So on this right hand side here, on this right hand column, we've got a very simplified figure of pollution that's done as a percentage, just to make it nice and easy to compare. So as we can see now, it doesn't match up perfectly. So what I'd like you to do is to pick out any of those pieces of data which surprise you in particular. So just pick 1 or 2 and just say why they surprise you, or why you think they don't fit the trend that most of them seem to. Okay, here we have a scatter graph. Now there's a copy of this attached in the Go Schools documents. There's also a digital Excel spreadsheet you can use if you'd rather. Now you can either print this one out if you have a printer. If not, don't worry, that's absolutely fine. You can just do a digital version. But all I've done is plotted all the European cities on here with pollution and then tourists per year. And as we can see, there seems to be a large cluster in the middle, right about here. However, there's certainly some that seem to stick out, and some others which may or may not stick out over there with Istanbul. So first thing is to get that. What I'd like you to do then is this is what we call a line of best fit. So it is a straight line, not curved, not wonky, it's what's known as a line of best fit, that seems to go through the middle of most of the data. Now the 2 that are now in the nice neat red circles, Moscow and Amsterdam, they are far away from everything else, and therefore I've not included them in my line of best fit. They are what we'd know as anomalies, in that they stick out. They don't seem to match the trend of the rest of the data for whatever reason. So what I'd like to consider now is, what does this data show? Does it match your predictions or not? And which of these results surprise you? Does it match those that you think would or would not? So pause the video now and have a go at answering those questions. And when you're done, we're ready to move on. So next 2, we've got 2 very simplified graphs here. All I'd like you to do is work out which one you think would show the hypothesis to be true. Now you might need to flick back to have a look earlier just to remind yourselves of what it is, but potentially all I'd like you to do is pick which one you think it is it the top or the bottom one that's going to show the true hypothesis. So hopefully you'll have picked the top one. So this is what's known as a positive correlation, where the 2 variables, the variables being visitor numbers and pollution, that they are linked, and as one increases, the other increases also. Down at the bottom we have what's known as a negative correlation. So they're both linked again, however as one increases, the other decreases. That's known as a negative correlation. So we were looking at the positive correlation would mean our hypothesis is true. So we stated that as tourist numbers increases, there is more pollution. Right, final thing for today. Series of questions, but I'd like you to answer them almost as one paragraph. So our hypothesis again is at the top. So what I'd like you to do is the following. Do you agree with the hypothesis, which may be a partial agreement, it might be a full agreement, it might be you disagree. I'd like you to supply some evidence from a graph which supports your statement. Can you explain why this relationship exists? Are there any anomalies which we highlighted earlier? And if you can, why might the anomalies exist? If you need a little bit of help with that, on the next slide there are a couple of sentence starters which you can optionally use to help improve your answer. And I've got them here, so we've got the data table there, which is easy to refer to, hypothesis again, and then over here we've got sort of a sentence starter there, one there, one there, and one there. So if you need to, you can use each of those to get you started. So pause the video here and have a go at answering that question for me. Okay, and with that, that is most of our work done for today. So that leaves the following things. So previously I challenged you to name all the 54 countries in Africa. This time, I'm going to step it up a level. We're going to go to Asia now. There's 48. However, 48 doesn't include Hong Kong, Taiwan, or Macau, so don't bother using those. There are 48 others, as highlighted here in my world over to the right-hand side. We're looking at the green highlighted areas. So you've got until next week. How many, or actually you've got 2 weeks because it's half term. So you've got how many can you and your family name before you need to go and look them up to find the rest. 48. It's quite a challenge there. So we'll be interested to see how you get on. And then as a final reminder, it is half term next week, which means effectively you've got 2 weeks to do this because this will be due the Monday we come back after half term. There'll be an assignment set on Teams where you can upload the photo, or you can upload a Word document, or which PDF, whatever it is, you can upload it there, and then I can give you feedback on that. And then when we come back from half term, there'll be a PowerPoint with some class feedback as well as the specific feedback that I've set you on your assignment. So once you upload the assignment, you then need to make sure you click the assignment handed in button, otherwise it won't tell me that you've sent it. So even after you've clicked upload, there's a little button you must click just to say you've done it, and then I can give you some feedback on it, and then you can then re-upload the improved version in the exact same space, and I'll be able to see that and update it based upon that. Okay, so see you in a couple of weeks, ladies and gents.